Investigations have revealed that Indian diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leveraged their official position to engage in clandestine activities.
It is a steamy Tuesday morning here. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today's top stories, we've got Justin Trudeau picking fights with India. This is absolutely crazy. So he's pulled back the diplomats that are in India, and India has pulled back their diplomats. The whole thing is blowing up. We've got Larry Brock here with an update on Bill C-63. This is the online censorship, online harms bill. It's basically the Canadian censorship bill, among some other stories. So let's jump into it. We've got an update here on Bill C-63. This is Justin Trudeau's online censorship bill, and this is not good. It's going to cost us a lot of money and, well, censor our speech.
This $200 million doesn't cover the additional workload for the Canadian Human Rights Commission, which will have to manage a surge of complaints about social media posts in today's cancel culture. The government has no estimate of how many complaints the commission might receive, so it's very likely that the $200 million is just the beginning. To put that in perspective, the PBO's numbers reveal that the bureaucracy created solely by Bill 663 will be about 1/3 larger than the Transportation Safety Board of Canada, the agency responsible for ensuring the safety of Canadians in the air and on the roads. Additionally, the PBO's analysis shows that on a per capita basis, this new bureaucracy will be vastly larger than any comparable agency in other peer countries. Bill 6.3 should be scrapped just on the basis for its wasteful cost. It's absurd that while Liberals underfund the RCMP, leaving almost 1/3 of cybercrime positions vacant, they're proposing to dump $200 million and hire 300 staff for a vague new bureaucracy.
It's unbelievable. They're spending so much money on all sorts of things that don't help us, and they underfund cyber crimes. Now, I've been a victim of identity theft. I've had my entire YouTube channel. I've had my business deleted. I've been hacked multiple times. I've had my bank accounts completely emptied, which took me months to get my money back from multiple different banks, PayPal, RBC, and Tangerine. And that brings us to today's sponsor. This is the first sponsor I've ever had on my channel, and that's Private Internet Access. This is an app that you put on your phone or on your computer or your tablet, and it protects you against the hackers. Against, in this case, you'd be hiding yourself from Justin Trudeau with Bill C-63. That bill, they're going to go back in time. Any comment you've ever made on the internet, they'll come after you for it. With private internet access, what it does, it masks your IP address. That's essentially, think of it like your home address. What it does is say, gives you a PO box in another city. So if someone came to find you, they would look up your address, they would only get to your PO box and not your home address. That's essentially what a VPN, like private internet access, does. It protects you from all the hackers, the scammers, and in this case, the government, by keeping yourself private and secure. Allows you to put your connection anywhere. There's an auto server location. You can pick one that's nearby you. You can even pick one in another country, in America, anywhere around the world. This gives you other features as well. You can watch Netflix in another country because there's often geo-locked locations. You can switch it over to a location in America and then watch through American Netflix, getting more options. This also helps us with the news. As you know, in Canada, our news is blocked because of Justin Trudeau, but you can use private internet access to move your geolocation to America or another country, and then you can actually see more news of what's going on. You can use my code MOOSE or click the link in the description for 83% off. Big thanks to Private Internet Access for my first sponsor on this channel. I won't be putting a ton on here, just one here and there, not too much. Let's move on. For our headline topic here, we've got Canada, India expel each other's diplomats in escalating dispute over a 2023, that word, I'm not going to say that word, but first off, we're going to go to CBC for a little bit of the backstory here on what's going on.
We are following major breaking news out of Ottawa, where 6 Indian diplomats, including India's High Commissioner, are being expelled from Canada. That move follows a warning from the RCMP, who allege the Modi government is not only involved in a deep criminal conspiracy, but it's becoming more brazen.
While attempts have been made by the RCMP and national security officials to work with the government of India and Indian law enforcement counterparts on this matter, they have been repeatedly refused. This is why, this weekend, Canadian officials took an extraordinary step. They met with Indian officials to share RCMP evidence which concluded 6 agents of the government of India are persons of interest in criminal activities. And despite repeated requests to the government of India, it has decided not to cooperate.
The RCMP says agents of the Indian government are linked to crimes like homicide, extortion, and other acts of violence on Canadian soil. That led to the unprecedented move from the federal government. And in response, India is expelling 6 Canadian diplomats, including the acting High Commissioner. It's calling the claims, quote, baseless and unacceptable. Canada's relations with India have been tense ever since Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused the Indian government of playing a role in the murder of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Justin Trudeau's absolute disaster. Like, look how his foreign relations with other countries is just a joke. The man is ruining our image across Canada. Our passport is worth nothing now. The man is just embarrassing himself. He's embarrassing the country, and he's putting people at risk. He's a complete loser. So let's just jump to that clip to show you guys what he said last year.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Canada is a rule of law country. The protection of our citizens and defense of our sovereignty are fundamental. Our top priorities have therefore been, 1, that our law enforcement and security agencies ensure the continued safety of all Canadians, and 2, that all steps be taken to hold perpetrators of this murder to account. Canada has declared its deep concerns to the top intelligence and security officials of the Indian government. Last week at the G20, I brought them personally and directly to Prime Minister Modi in no uncertain terms. Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty.
So Trudeau royally pissed off India by saying that. Obviously, things have been very bad since.
And Sarah, in many ways, this story actually begins in that province where you are. What are you hearing?
In some ways, Stephanie, it does. I mean, if you think back to events in BC more than a year ago, that really is what has led us to this point right now. And Kate, there, you heard her mention the name Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Back in June 2023, that is when he was shot to death outside his place of worship in Surrey, British Columbia. He was part of the pro-Khalistan movement, a group, a movement that advocates for a separate Sikh state within India. All the while, he and others like him are living in another country, in Canada, and afforded the protections that Canada provides.
So basically, those Khalistani separatists are considered T-word people back in India, I believe, and they're not allowed to protest in India. So they come here and they protest about that here, about back there. I don't know if we really want this kind of stuff in our country. Maybe we should have some rules where you can't come to our country and then protest about groups that should exist in another country, because that's what we're getting here. Multiple different groups doing it. It doesn't benefit our country at all. I know we got freedom of speech, but we should be focusing on what's best for Canada. We got this posted by Justin Trudeau's ego. It says, in Canada, diversity is our strength. That's why we have Palestinian protesters running through our streets with these words like psychopaths. So I believe all of these pointy things are protected under religious props, but it's still ridiculous because you could just say they're religious props and then go do something really bad and you have an whole army with you. It's time to get this kind of crap out of the streets. I mean, do I really need to be saying this? I mean, look at this. Do we want this in running around in our streets?
Their efforts for Khalistan, India's government has in some cases labeled them as terrorists. What we are hearing today from the Canadian government, not so different from the allegations that were made by Nijjar's associates.
You know, when we think about the other countries that Canada has suspected of foreign interference, countries like Russia or Iran, they don't necessarily share really close diplomatic ties with Canada. On the other hand, we have India, whose diplomatic relationship with our country is very long, spans 75 years. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, she described it in that press conference as, you know, she said there are deep person-to-person ties between these two countries. How does that complicate the situation here?
Well, I think, from the Canadian government's perspective, they would like to see a resolution of this. And in the RCMP commissioner's own press conference, he really sort of suggested there was a way forward in terms of cooperation, recognizing that there may be indeed extremist elements within the Sikh community in Canada that would be of concern to Canada on a national security basis and is a concern to India. So trying to, offer some ground for a way forward. But first, they need the cooperation of the Indian government in terms of investigations into events that have taken place so far. So
the whole situation is ridiculous. We shouldn't have this kind of stuff going on. The Indian government shouldn't be doing this stuff. Trudeau should not have let any of this happen, let alone poking the bear and trying to anger them and making ties worse with the country. Everything Justin Trudeau touches becomes a disaster, falls apart. Speaking of Captain Schmuck, here's it straight from the horse's mouth.
It is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion or other violent acts. It is absolutely unacceptable for any country, any democracy that upholds the rule of law. That is why we have taken such significant measures, why the RCMP chose to come out today and disrupt the pattern of Indian diplomats collecting through questionable and illegal means information on Canadian citizens that were then fed to criminal organizations that would then take violent actions from extortion to murder against Canadians. No country, particularly not a democracy that upholds the rule of law, can accept this fundamental violation of its sovereignty. Canada fully accepts and respects the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of India. We expect India to do the same. In this case, they did not.
I mean, we got to ask, when is enough enough? If you look at all the scam call centers, a good 95% of them come from India, and they just keep moving around. These people steal hundreds of millions of dollars from Canadians, Americans, mostly preying on old people. And now we've got this. It's time to put the foot down. It's time to put the boot down. We've got this schmuck here who's too busy stealing our money, let alone trying to deal with what's going on with all these other guys around the world. Got this comment here, timing is suspect. That is pretty suspect, considering how bad things are going for Trudeau. He won't hand over the documents, flies off to France, flies off to Laos. Oh, now we've got this going on, right? Does this just distract us for not giving out the SDTC documents there to the RCMP? Looking through these comments, there's people on both sides. There's people all over the spectrum on how they stand on all this stuff. We got more on this coming from the RCMP themselves.
Earlier this week, RCMP Deputy Commissioner of Federal Policing made attempts to meet with the Indian law enforcement counterparts to discuss violent extremists occurring in Canada and India, and present evidence pertaining to agents of the government of India's involvement in serious criminal activity here in Canada. Unfortunately, these attempts were unsuccessful. Therefore, Deputy Commissioner met with officials of the government of India alongside with the National Security Intelligence Advisor and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs over the weekend. Through our national task force and other investigative efforts, the RCMP has obtained evidence that demonstrates 4 very serious issues. 1, violent extremists impacting both countries. 2, links tying agents of the government of India to homicides and violent acts. 3, the use of organized crime to create perception of unsafe environment targeting the South Asian community in Canada. And the 4th, interference in democratic processes. Investigations have revealed that Indian diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leveraged their official position to engage in clandestine activities, such as collecting information for the government of India, either directly or through their agents, and other individuals who acted voluntarily or through coercion. Evidence also shows that a wide variety of entities in Canada and abroad have been used by agents of the government of India to collect information. Some of these individuals and businesses were coerced and threatened into working with the government of India. The information collected by the government of India is then used to target members of the South Asian community.
This is quite the stuff going on. They also said we're looking into we and SNC Lavalin with no follow-up. The slush fund scandal will be no different. They just say they're on the job, then wait until no one cares anymore. Yeah, that really seems to be what's going on with the RCMP. It's time to press some charges. At the top here, it says the RCMP shouldn't investigate anything of national concern. They are compromised. A lot of people in the comments here agree. Exactly. RCMP has shown time and time again they're compromised from dropping the Aga Khan investigation despite clear evidence to interfering in the NS mass, that word, probe with Trudeau's gun bill. They've proven they can't be trusted with anything of national importance. Finally, we've got narcissist Justin Trudeau saying that they targeted him, and specifically he says himself.
I've spoken directly with Prime Minister Modi. We have engaged with intelligence counterparts. And unfortunately, every step of the way, both after I made the statement in the House of Commons last September till now, the response of the Indian government has been to deny, to obfuscate, to attack me personally and the integrity of the government of Canada and its officials and its police agencies.
Why would they go after you personally, Justin Trudeau? Maybe it's because you're the one who made the comments in the House of Commons. This guy, when talking about a big national scandal with all the stuff that these Indian diplomats did, then has to bring it back to himself. Captain Narcissist. Yes, you poke the bear. You're the one who said it in the House of Commons, Justin. Maybe it's time to clean up some crap that's going on here. In other news, we got Justin Trudeau applauds Thailand for legalizing gay marriage during the Asean Summit. Because that's what he's got time to do. Forget about the SDTC scandal. This is what he's busy doing right now. Now, you might be wondering, what are the Palestinian protesters doing right now? They're at Arif Virani's house, his house, harassing and heckling him. And this is very likely because Arif Virani is basically the only liberal to stand up and say something about the Death to Canada message that was delivered by Samadoun Palestinians in Vancouver last week, and now they're out at his house. I don't like any liberals. I don't like Arif Virani. I think he's a bonehead. I think he's a liar. But these people coming out to residential neighborhoods and just chanting and harassing the guy at his house, like, this is an all-time low. Like, do these people not have anything better to do? They must be getting paid a lot of money by someone to just spend all day, every day doing this kind of crap.
International Court of Justice. But shame! Shame! We are here to make
These people need to be arrested anytime they go into residential neighborhoods. They shouldn't be doing this downtown Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, etc. But residential neighborhoods, come on, guys. Like, these people have no shame whatsoever. They have no respect for this country. Like, what do they have? Why are they even here? Talk about all-time backfire. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised this happened. Maybe that's why all the other Trudeau liberals won't speak up against the situation. Although I think this is amazing. Going to any politician's family home is harassment. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all on the same side here. No one wants to have people outside their house chanting and, you know, finding out where people live. Next up, we got this one posted. It's an old debate clip between Trudeau and Harper. It says Harper was right about everything.
Well, let me just correct the record on a couple of things.
Refugees are about the economy, David.
Trudeau said about refugees. First of all, the fact of the matter is we have not taken away health care from immigrants and refugees. On the contrary, the only time we've removed it is where we have clearly bogus refugee claimants who have been refused and turned down. We do not offer them a better health care plan than the ordinary Canadian can receive.
I think that's something that most
new and existing and old stock Canadians agree with. On the issue of refugees, this remains one of the largest countries in the world in terms of refugee resettlement, including from Syria and Iraq.
Mr. Harper.
I have said we will bring in more, but what I have said we will not do. You know, these guys would have had in the last 2 weeks us throwing open our borders and literally hundreds of thousands of people coming without any kind of security check or documentation.
And that's
some other
not true,
countries have
Mr.
done.
Harper.
That would have been an enormous mistake.
See,
we're following a balanced approach. We're bringing more refugees.
Fears all the time.
We're providing
fears
more
of
humanitarian
others,
support.
fears of different communities.
And we're taking
we have a
on
prime minister who prefers to pander to fears.
Let's go to Mr. Mulcair.
That's not right, sir.
Immigration.
That is wild because Harper was 100% right. He says right in here that Trudeau would open the doors to mass immigration without security checks, and that's exactly what we got. Do we need to look any further than this? We didn't know how good we had it under Harper, and boy, did we get a reminder. I was wrong about Harper back then, fully admit it now. I had CBC radio on every day and trusted the mainstream media, always heard smears of Harper, and just to think many normies just like that today, they think they know what's going on, but they have no clue. Next up, we got this BC election. David Eby urges the Green voters to support the NDP to keep Conservatives out of office. David Eby is just desperate because the numbers are so close. He's desperate, just begging for votes from the Green Party. They're trying their best right now to smear John Rustad. They recently pulled up this clip that they're posting around that they asked him what program he'd get rid of. It was the Clean BC program. And they're scoffing at it like that's such a bad thing. When really, if you look into it, Edison Motors in BC was getting forced by the BC NDP, Josie Osborne, in the NDP government through MNP to have them write their Clean BC grant and get a 20% kickback in the process. We're talking grants that are worth like $1 million, $2 million, which means MNP would get $200,000, $400,000 for each grant that goes through to a company like Edison Motors. That whole program is completely corrupt. Edison Motors has blew up the whole situation themselves. I've made a couple videos on it. Right now, David Eby is so desperate between pushing that clip that's going on. There's a couple other clips, and now begging for Green Party voters. And speaking of that, this is where we are in the polls right now. You can see it's tight. Both sides like to say they're leading. It's pretty darn tight. You can see, some areas here. City of Van Burnaby is 31% Conservative, 56% NDP. You're 50% Conservative here in the interior, 34%. It's neck and neck right now. We need more Conservatives to get out and vote. With that, we've got Conservative John Rustad saying if he wins, he'll be building a new children's hospital in Surrey.
If elected, John Rustad says his BC Conservative government would build a children's hospital on this vacant site in Surrey.
It's long past time that we see healthcare services expand in Surrey.
Next up, we've got this here. It says, do you want more of this? Vote BC NDP. Yeah, $2.34 per liter. This is David Eby's BC here, Trudeau's Canada. They're one and the same. In other news, we've got NASA announces a probe to see if there's life on a Jupiter moon. They're spending $5.2 billion. It says the mission will allow NASA to uncover new details about Europa, which scientists believe could conceal an ocean below its icy surface. With Europa Clipper, we're not searching for life on Europa, but we're seeing to see if the ocean world is habitable. That means looking for water. That's a lot of money to spend, but maybe that's what has to be spent to save civilization. I don't know. I think we should save what we've got here myself, but that's what they're spending that money on. I guess there are large sums of money spent in worse places. Jumping over to my group, let's check out some memes here. Liberal bench after 2025. We've got this one here. Sir John A. Macdonald could address Parliament with eloquence and passion for hours at a time. Justin Trudeau. Clocks go back in a few weeks. I'm setting mine back 50 years when this country had some balls. The system is broken because it was built by ego. The craziest part from Home Alone was Kevin got all these groceries for $19. We got a 1954 crap spreader and we've got 2024 crap spreader. This has been brewing for some time, all this conflict with India. I'm not surprised. Justin Trudeau handling the whole situation about as worse as he possibly can. And maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he just wants this as a big distraction so he doesn't have to give over those documents to the RCMP and get himself tossed in jail. Even when the House is not even in session, Trudeau's got scandals coming out and big news. It's just every day with this guy. Question now is, what's the next scandal coming tomorrow?